been over a decade since the Macondo incident. What would you guys say are the biggest lessons the industry has learned since then?
I think the biggest lesson has been how the industry can police itself. Different industry folks, whether it's operators, contractors, they've had an opportunity to work with the government to find a solution that both meets the intent, but is also economically viable.
Coming from the old days of writing in a logbook, now you have that digital footprint to prove everything, which is amazing. And it's one of the greatest tools I've seen since Macondo.
Because we have so much data, we're at a point now where we can start using that data to make decisions. We know the state of the BOP right now, from fault identification to here's the problem, here's the solution, here's how we're working around it, and that happens at 3 a.m. Didn't used to be like that.
Data doesn't lie. We're not out there to spy. We're there to help them.
The goalposts are moving, so we can't do what we've always done.
Yeah.
We have to be innovative.
Work smarter, not harder. Like, there's so many tools that you have here, it'll help you accomplish things 50% faster. Once I kind of realized that. All right, welcome to another episode of I Speak Subsea. We're going to be talking about digital transformation, innovation, and post-Macondo evolution. Today I have Eric Fritts, Adams Braley, and Keith Dunnam. Let's go ahead and dive into it. It's been over a decade since the Macondo incident. What would you guys say are the biggest lessons the industry has learned since then?
I think the biggest lesson has been how the industry can police itself. There's been a lot of good discussions between industry and regulators. Immediately post-Macondo, some rules and regulations came out, and they were, I think most people can agree, a little beyond the pale. But the government's been receptive to input, so different industry folks, whether it's operators, contractors, they've had an opportunity to work with the government to find a solution that both meets the intent, but is also economically viable.
Gotcha. So doing what we do here at Aquila, how do we help operators in that way, I guess? How can we assist them?
Well, I think one of our biggest assets that we provide is through our platform, both with failure tracking, but also because of our platform, we can offer clients 21-day testing. So without the ability to do what we do, you would have a 14-day testing cycle. So after you latch up a BOP, every 14 days, you've got to do a subsequent pressure test. Moving to 21 days, we've been able to show the reliability is still there. We actually were able to show that function testing at a 14-day interval might be more detrimental just because of wear and tear. But moving to that 21-day, it eases some financial burden. It makes operations smoother. And it still maintains a high, if not higher, level of reliability of the equipment.
All right, so when you guys think about safety and reliability and accountability, how has that evolved in offshore operations?
Well, prior to digital transformation, it was difficult, not impossible, but it was difficult to know and to make plans based around an operation or an evolution without having a context on, how did this go the last time? It's easy to look back and say, oh, the last time we did this, this happened. It's a lot harder to look back and say, oh, the last 15 times we did this, this happened, or that happened, or there's a possibility of something going wrong with this. But now that we're in this age of digital transformation, we capture so much data that we can build a picture around a specific evolution or a specific operation, and we can make a better path forward. It's easier to learn from our mistakes because we have so much data readily available.
Well, the revolutionizing of the data and the digital era, coming from the old days of writing in a logbook, and now I've been there. So, you didn't have a leg to stand on. I wrote it down, but I can't find it. Now you have that digital footprint to prove everything, which is amazing. And it's one of the greatest tools I've seen since Macondo that is really gave you feet on the ground stability to say, I did what I did and here's the proof.
when you can go build a bigger picture by using all that data. In the past, the data was there, but nobody ever did anything with it.
Good point. That's kind of what I was going to get at. There's so much backlogged data that's just sitting there, stored essentially, that nobody's doing anything with, and that's what I think Aquila kind of dove into. How do we provide a solution for multiple problems? Because there's multiple different avenues that we can use that data to benefit the operator. So that's good. So if you could summarize the biggest change in offshore culture since Macondo in one word, what would that be?
Revolutionized.
Sect is always a big word. Sect is always a big word. Revolutionize, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd throw innovative out there too. Innovation and everything is a big one. All right. So with that being said, how has digitalization, big word, reshaped the way we approach well control, compliance, and reliability?
Because we have so much data, we're at a point now where we can start using that data to make decisions. So we know if a rig is going to go to a specific location to do a specific job on a well, we know the parameters of that well. We'll know the capabilities of the BOP, but more than that, because of our data, we know the state of the BOP right now. And I know when it's on surface, they're going to do some amount of in-between well maintenance. Maybe it's a very large scope where they're replacing a lot of components, where they're doing a lot of maintenance. Maybe it's a very truncated scope. But we can help drive what that scope is. So we can look at our information and say, hey, you may not be seeing this at the rig level, but we're seeing a problem with this circuit, or maybe we can narrow it down to this specific SPM. So if you weren't planning on looking at it, it might be in your best interest to add that to your work scope. And that way, they're not splashing the BOP with what we know is likely to be a problem.
Yeah, something that we have validated that's trending towards degree. Yeah. Gotcha.
Or a common failure that we've seen
Across the industry.
Yeah. Or across that manufacturer.
We kind of touched on it already with the data silos and things just being stored and not used. So before digital monitoring became standard, much of the offshore data was siloed or delayed. How has real-time data transparency changed operations today? I know we discussed going 21 days gives you that ability, and then the reliability aspects. How else has it changed?
The remote access of it has been beneficial. Just like I say, you have your RTOC 24-hour man that can see trends for the rig side people who may be busy doing other work and they're not paying attention to their equipment, but are otherwise deposed onto something else. And they can be contacted and say, hey, you may want to look into this. We're seeing an uptick in a trend. And even being the FSC, being on the rig with Oculus and whatnot, I can see things as well that they may not have seen on their daily rounds. Hey, your depletion rate went from 0.3 to 1.3, so we need to maybe take a little better, slower look at some of the equipment and see where this fluid's going.
You got another set of eyes looking at things that would have gotten missed in the past because guys had other things that they were doing day to day. And like Keith mentioned, might have gone from 0.3 to 1.3 and they didn't think anything about it. Well, it's still not bad. Let's keep going with operations. But now that you have somebody else making recommendations that here's something that maybe you need to look at or haven't thought about, they can go in and look at those things. Or Russ, are you planning?
Even on the FSC side, we can pull trends on our laptops through Oculus without hesitation, and maybe have a little more information before you approach the rig side of it. So you say, I noticed an uptick in this particular component, and we can troubleshoot it further from there. If it's surface or subsea.
Yeah, that's a very valid point too. Our FSCs not only are out there for the compliance and have that expertise, but they also have the Oculus platform in their pocket. So at any point in time, The RTOC, yes, is there 24/7, but you've also got our FSC on the rig, on site, with the subsea crew that's able to go in there and troubleshoot as well at the same time. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think strictly from a third-party perspective, one of the biggest benefits I see is when something doesn't go right, or when a component thing, a leak is identified on the rig and a component isn't acting like it's supposed to. Historically, if a rig wanted a statement of fact, pre-real-time monitoring, we'd get some information from an FSE, we'd get some information from maybe the senior subsea. Conversations would start about, okay, here's what we're seeing. Okay, bust out the schematics. Here's a flow path. Here's probably where the problem is. Those conversations go to town. They come back. At the end of the day, we get a bunch of different conversations. We look at everything, we sort through, and we say, okay, this makes sense. I agree that this is probably the issue. I agree that you're probably still okay. You meet regulation. Here's a statement of fact. And that's a long process. That could be hours. That could stretch into a day plus. But now, if I get notified at 3 a.m. that there's an issue, I can go sit at the dining room table, pull up Oculus. I can see exactly what the issue is. I can see how the system is responding to that issue. We can create a failure, run a fault analysis that shows, hey, here's what's happening. You still meet these regulations. And now I can sign that exact same statement of fact, but I know what the problem is. I'm not taking in information. I've seen what the problem is. And we can do all that in sometimes 30 minutes. From fault identification to here's the problem, here's the solution, here's how we're working around it, here's your statement of fact. And that happens at 3 a.m. It didn't used to be like that.
That's an awesome tool. It's the efficiency there has come a long ways. AI. I know AI is a big buzzword across the industry. Everybody's using AI. Everybody's claiming to be using AI. What differs for us is we're not just using off-the-shelf AI, right? We're building AI. We're training models. We're training agents. It's building them for specific needs, right? So AI and predictive analytics, how is that playing when it comes to Aquila and preventing incidents before they happen?
I think I can give a pretty good example of that, and that's with daily reporting. So every rig that we have an FSE on, we get a daily report. And FSEs are all human beings. No two daily reports are going to be exactly the same. They're structured basically the same, sectional, but no two people are going to write the same daily report for the things that they saw. But having built a tool that takes this into account, we can now go back and look at thousands upon thousands of daily reports and pull relevant information from them. Things that don't always make it into Oculus. Things that were just mentioned anecdotally in this report, but may have relevance. We can now build a database from years worth of daily reporting that historically was just, a stack of paper or a folder full of PDFs somewhere that you'd have to manually search and find things. So to me, that's been a huge benefit to greatly reduce the amount of time it takes to find things and also build a better picture of how components react in the wild.
Yeah.
I think it also goes back to the conversation before, and you have a whole database full of data, but if you're not doing anything with it and you don't have people that have the time to be able to go through it and process it, and AI has the ability to process it much faster and be able to find trends or find common failures that can be identified much quicker and even be able to predict what's going to happen.
Yeah, everything goes back to so much data just sitting there that nobody's doing anything right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at, like Adam said, you look at these huge databases, is it possible for one of us to sit down and look at 15 different things and identify, oh my goodness, when these 7 things happen and then those 7 things happen over there, then this happens. Is that possible? Yeah, it's possible. But you could spend weeks to find that one thing. Whereas if you've trained a tool on how the system works and asked it to go find these things, it can find 20 of those in a minute.
Yeah.
And you may have forgotten what you looked at last. So
I think the AI future, just in troubleshooting, of course we're subsea, so I mean, the trends, you see the trends coming now to where before it was by ear or whatever. You see it, smell it, touch it, feel it, old school. But now,
So this pump smells different.
yeah, and literally you could tell by the sound the way something ran or whatever, you could be in the living quarter to hear your pumps come on. I wonder. So, but with the Oculus platform and seeing the trends, being a gentleman of a certain age and coming through all of the new revolution of the industry has really, really opened my eyes to the potential of what AI could do. You see these different applications for it. So, if it's reading all of these trends along, hey, you may see something pop up a lot sooner that could, hey, we're on the surface and this is not giving us any problems, but AI may be saying, hey, you might want to check this out before you get this thing wet, So I see great potential in not just in oil and gas, but in a lot of different platforms.
Yeah. Sudden catastrophic failure still happens, but there's
anytime you have machine-human interface, the weakest link 9 times out of 10's,
Yeah. But a lot of times there's things that were leading up to that catastrophic failure that wasn't being looked at or was ignored. And having that data that you can look at it and start to see the trends that something's not right and needs to be looked at, whereas in the past nobody was looking at it or listening for it. So AI can help with that, and the more data and that's out there, more tools you have. And I think that's always been a thing in the past. The industry, there's people out there who've been reluctant to look at the new technology and we should do it the channels, but we've been doing it this way. So why do I need to try to look at something new?
That's all real fixtures in Joey. I mean, old school, you got wrenches and went to work.
Yeah.
Now the days and times now since Macondo, you have to stop back, make sure you got a procedure for it. You need permits, so forth and so on. And that's great. The safety side of it has exponentially improved for the better. And I'm glad to see that. But I mean, it's been numerous days that you'd walk to the handrail and look, see if somebody's looking, and reach out there to do what you needed to do. And, but those days are long gone, and it's for the best. But the AI potential I see is I can only make things better for the industry, and it'll be a learning curve and some changes have to be made. I'm certain of that, but it will be for the better, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, and dealing with operators, they all have a digital journey that they're trying to go down, right? They want to go digital. It's just it's a long process, right? Because they don't have teams like that within their companies. So they're trying to outsource and find different avenues and how they can get there quicker. So that's where we've kind of been able to step in a lot, help them get to their end point a lot faster. Sometimes years off of their plan, just because they don't know the right avenues to go down. They don't know what tools are already out there that they can use to help speed up things.
Yeah. For AI, I think it's important to understand that it's not like this panacea. It's not this magic smoke in a box and you plug it in and
It's just going to
solve problems, right? It's still built by humans. It's still trained by humans. At the end of the day, a human has to say, yep, you got that right.
Yeah.
Go do it again. And it's still by and large built on hindsight. So we know, because things have happened previously, we can tell AI, or we can tell a tool, hey, this is what to look for. And maybe it'll find other things that we didn't look for previously. But it's very difficult. You can build a physics-based model on something, a digital twin, and say, hey, I think this might happen. But there's so many variables that are impossible to account for in that model that, by and large, AI is still trained on hindsight. And I don't know how to break through that wall to get to the next level. And maybe we can, maybe we can't. Maybe it'll always be built on partially on hindsight, partially on intuition. But I think we're still a long way from that magic box that you plug in and it just solves your problems.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think we can get there, but it's going to take the industry as a whole participating in that, right? everybody should be wanting the greater good for the industry. So it's hard to get operators to release, or to get people, drilling contractors, operators, to release data, right? Because everybody's sitting on this data like, well, this is my data. Oh, I don't want to give it to anybody else. But
We see this a little bit more since Macondo. People are willing to share and have those discussions and go through that. But before that, it was nope, this is what we're doing. It's our secrets. We're not sharing anything. That's not any lessons learned.
I think now with the digital journeys that they're trying to go down, they're more open to handing our accessing the data, letting other people.
Well, I think you have a newer generation too in the contractors that are more open to change. Like, some of your old school,
Yeah, weren't in the digital age.
no, they were still writing in notebooks, and they'd look at a computer and just keep walking. And that your hats off to them, because they built this industry to where we're at now. But now it's time for change, and it'll be a learning curve, but it'll be for the better.
Yeah. There's always been a balance between human experience and digital intelligence. Where do you see that balance at today?
Well, even on the digital side, we still rely heavily, and I think we should. I don't see this changing in the near future. We still rely heavily on a human in the loop looking at things, saying, "Yep, that is correct." For as finally as we train our tools, they identify what we tell them to identify. But our understanding of what they need to identify, it continuously evolves.
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon to get a false alarm, a false positive or a false negative on something, and it requires somebody in the loop to look at that and has the expertise to be able to look at that and saying, nope, this isn't really a problem because ABC.
Which further trains the tools. And
Yeah, I don't see that ever changing, but I see that balance moving further away from the human, the more sophisticated the tools get, but the human has to always be there.
yeah,
The tools are great and helpful in a lot of ways, but the tools can't go look at something and see if it's actually a problem. We're not quite there yet in a lot of ways.
next month we're unveiling Aquila drone. In regards to crews offshore and real-time monitoring, the digital pressure testing tools and stuff that we have, are these guys embracing it, or is there still some resistance? Do we still see resistance from me?
Oh yeah, definitely still see resistance.
Yeah, I speak it, from my point of view, one of the rigs that I've been on associated with, everybody in the room knows about it, but the data acquisition from Aquila to Aquila from the rig was poor, very, very poor. So we were seeing things that they weren't, we would see things on the rig that Aquila here, Oculus or RTOC, was not seeing at the point because of the delay in data transmissions. So we would see things on our end that wasn't reality on the rig. So, the data acquisition has to be precise, and the lag times we were receiving were quite cumbersome at times. Weather and the way it was transmitted as well was a challenge. But for the most part, on any given day, I would get a call from the senior, "Hey, are you seeing anything different? I heard my pumps kick on a little more irregular." So I could pull a trend, I could see it a little better. And they were a little more receptive for that, but still one crew would be, one crew would not be. Oh, that's baloney, and I don't believe that. And then next day, "Hey, we got a problem. I told you about it yesterday."
Data doesn't lie. I mean, the raw data doesn't lie. No, that's what it is, right? There's no data's not biased. So it's getting the crews offshore to realize more that we're not, just companies like us in general, we're not out there to spy. We're not out there to get them in trouble or
No.
prove that they missed something or anything like that. We're there to help them. We have the tools that can that can help them, I guess. And it's once they kind of, from my experience, once they kind of have that, come to that realization, their whole attitude shifts. And then they're like, man, they start coming to you then, right? Hey, can you help me out here? Can you show me what you're looking at here?
I've seen that a lot in the past where they're very reluctant up front. They think Big Brother's out there now because somebody else is looking at it real time. And then after a couple weeks, they start coming to you going, wow, what did you guys see? What can you do to help me here? Start asking you all sorts of questions, and they realize that it's there and it is a benefit, but it takes them a little while to come around to it.
Yeah, no, I've had actually rigs that I'm not even on from the subsea department contact me because they had misplaced or their login for Oculus that they had access to. Hey, can you look at this for me? And I think I've got a problem here. Can you look at it and tell me what you see and help them out, in real time? So it's not necessarily just that one rig you're on as a field service engineer. You make connections and have rapport with people, and they start depending on different aspects of the equipment to help them. And I see it changing for the better, more support and acceptance offshore, but you still have those one or two here and there. I don't need that, but they need it more than they're willing to admit.
Yeah, I think over time, the more this gets used, the more they realize it's a helpful tool and puts them in a better spot. I think it's going to be a lot easier of a transition going forward.
Yeah. Like you guys had mentioned, I think the most telling thing for me is on the rigs that we do, maybe we'll run a pilot overseas on a rig, and the operator says, "I'd like to try this out." Well, that kind of gets dumped on the senior subsea's head. And, from the get-go, that senior's like, oh, man, it's another tool. This is another conversation I've got to have with somebody else about stuff. And I'm yet to see at the end of one of those pilots where they still feel the same way. Everybody, in my experience so far, everybody's come around and seen the benefit of it. So I think that's the most telling thing is, it'll get normalized.
Agree. Okay, so when talking about the surveyors in general, so what kind of skills do today's surveyors offshore need to have that weren't really relevant 10 years ago? Like, in your opinion, what do you think their strong skill set needs to be added to?
For me, a lot of it is regulation. The regulation has changed so much, and it can be very convoluted. The regulators try their best to make sure there's no gray areas, but you can't get rid of them. There's always gray areas. There's always interpretations. So having a fleet of field service engineers that's capable of looking at the problem, looking at the regulations, but also reading between the lines and really understanding what's going on, that's a skill set that I'm not going to say wasn't necessary 10 years ago, but has become more necessary as the regulations get more and more complex, convoluted as we add equipment to it.
They're constantly changing and evolving to meet the new technology. And so staying up with them and understanding them is a big piece of it.
And I think communication skills play a whole lot too, being able to talk to the senior subsea and the client that we're representing out there as well, having open communication, being able to talk to people and have the information, know what the regulations say, and be able to communicate that in a professional manner to the rig side of it. Say, we need to stop and look at this. This is not, within regulation, and communicate that in a professional manner. And then carry on from there.
I think even the method of communications have changed so much for the better.
Yeah.
10, 15 plus years ago, if you wanted to get a hold of a surveyor, maybe you could send an email. Maybe you would have a dedicated phone line that you could call on the rig that somebody may or may not be there to answer. But now, in addition to that, we've got Teams. We can get a video call going. We can do a Teams chat and have a real-time conversation. Even cell phones nowadays, once they're hooked up to the Wi-Fi, you text and you got calls. So we've got so many different avenues of communication that we can find one that works. We can have real-time interaction remotely with the rig, and that's hugely beneficial.
Clear. Yeah, I mean, they're able to take pictures and send pictures back and get to the info and what they're seeing and what the problems are much quicker than in the past, where they didn't have Wi-Fi out on the rigs, and so it was not a quick process to actually be able to for everybody else to see what was happening.
Yeah. I mean, and we refer to the Oculus platform, just the visibility that people in the office have, that kind of, it helps them to eliminate unneeded communication, right? To not bother those guys because they've gotten the data in front of them, right? That's easily readable in real time. So that's, I mean, even it helps out the office, helps the offshore crew without communications, I guess. That then they're communicating at a time where, like, hey, we've already looked into this. We see what you see. This is what we think. Cuts down on troubleshooting time. It's a lot more efficient, I guess. Let's go into a little bit of the future. So, how do y'all see upstream operations evolving over the next decade? Do you think we'll ever reach a truly autonomous offshore environment, or do you think there's always going to be, I mean, I get there's always going to be a human aspect, Scott, but do you think that percentage of human and digital is going to be way less, I guess, human side?
Yeah, I can definitely see it pivoting more digital. I mean, there have been rigs under Transocean was phenomenal about this, where they identify an evolution that's particularly hazardous to people. And they develop tools and they work with other companies to automate processes that used to take, 5 guys with chain tongs and all this stuff to do. Now they can push a button and these same evolutions happen automatically off to the side in the safe area. I see that drive and that general concept of doing things that way progressing. Now, I'm not in a position to say if there's a ceiling to that, and if there is, where it is, but we're not there yet. There's a lot more that can be done.
Yeah.
With robotics and all of the evolution of technology, I mean, they've been able to take people out of the red zones. They've been able to automate things that weren't possible 10 years ago. And I think it's only going to continue to advance, and we'll see more and more of that. So there will be less human aspect, but I don't think we'll ever, at least not anytime soon, get to a fully automated and completely remove the.
Yeah, I think somebody has to be there to make judgment calls. I've never personally seen it, but like you talking about the robotics and all in riser runs, being in the red zone and whatnot, and these guys. But you still have that human machine interface there watching. You may do away with a roughneck or something, but you're adding 2 ETs, to keep up with the equipment. Yeah, I don't know if in the remaining part of my career I'll ever see the human complete, the factor of the personnel not on the rig would ever be taken over by, robots. Yeah. Well, I mean, and we came up on the rigs throwing tongs and roughnecking and whatnot. And then the first time I saw an iron roughneck, I was like, what is that? Spinner hawks and working in the derrick and all that, it's progressively gone that way through the years. And it will indeed continue to move. But I'm like Eric said, I don't know where that ceiling will be. This is where we're going to stop, and we're going to, be happy with what we got. But I'm most of your major players in the game are always looking for bigger, better deals and trying to keep from hurting people, which is one of the biggest factors in the robotics and whatnot, is take the human out of the picture.
And I think, to your point, that the human aspect's going to keep changing. I mean, we went from people in brake handles to people with cyber chairs. We've changed how they're operating the equipment and how the operations are happening. It's going to continue to, even when you're not going to be able to take the human aspect fully out of it.
Right. And in the drilling industry itself has changed exponentially from the old days. Now we got managed pressure drilling. You know, that was a new thing for me. I'm like, man, you got to be kidding me. We drilling under balance. We ain't losing no fluid. What do you mean? You know, the revolution is the minds of people now in the industry and the AI and whatnot is just really dramatically changed things from 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. You could only imagine where it's going to be in 5 more years or.
Well, I mean, the digital generation, I guess, is what you call it now. The next one is going to be surpass what we've currently got, right? All these people with all these great ideas and going digital and everything else, it's only going to get more. Yeah, the further we go, the more it's going to come out. So I think, like you said, we've got a long ways to go. And I don't know if we're ever going to see what we'll see in our lifetime or during our careers, but it's pretty exciting to think about what can be there 20 years from now. Like, where am I going to be? How will we be operating?
I've seen, you know, from the digital pressure testing side of it. I was part of a program with a company overseas, and they wanted to try this and run it in the background for our circle charts. That's not how old I am. So, and it was new. And we tried it, and finally the client's like, "This isn't working. We're going to do away with it." But you know, that was 2012, and look where we're at now with it. We depend on it. It's so much more easy to test with digital pressure testing. The DPT system we use, I've used them all. The Aquila DPT system is by far the best I have ever had my hands on. And when we say we're going to pressure test, I'm like, hallelujah. You know, this is fun for me. You know, I enjoy this, and it helps the crew. I mean, even if you're not testing down whole subsequent tests or whatever, you're testing equipment on surface. It's foolproof.
Yeah.
It's foolproof. It takes all the guesswork out of it.
That's what still baffles me is that people are still using circle charts. Yeah. Like, they're just the proof.
Well,
that out there.
One client we have, when they're doing their pressure test on surface stump testing, have to run a circle chart in the background, regardless of the digital.
Yeah.
You know, and that's fine. That's, you know, you're double covered. You got insurance on both sides.
Yeah, I think back to your original question, taking into account what Elizabeth said, what's really interesting for me is even just to break into oil and gas today. Like you're a young kid, you say, I want to get into oil and gas. The skill set that you have to do the same type of job today is so much different than it was 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
It would be nearly impossible to be able to go out to a rig today and do just about any job if you can't operate a computer. And if you don't know how to update things on a spreadsheet or a CLMS system, you know, everything's just moving that direction, and it's impacted the skill set. I think it's a benefit.
Yeah.
But it's a change. It's different.
Yeah, I mean, and for what I'm used to, was almost more cowboy. Let's just shit and get. That is what it is. We got to get this debit day. Let's go. Now it's a lot more, it's a lot less stress on the body, I believe, because of the way things are now and how efficient things are now. But having that mindset, and that's what was tough for me, especially coming into an office setting, was you need to slow down for a minute. There's an easier way to do this. Work smarter, not harder. Like there's so many tools that you have here. It'll help you accomplish things 50% faster. Once I kind of realized that, then it changed the game for me. Yeah. Once I kind of got on board with that, it was different. And that's why I think our surveyors succeed and are so good, is because the majority of them have accepted that. Hey, we've got digital tools that help us. We use them. We help the operator look good. We help the subsea crews look better. We're there to help them. That mindset, once they get to that realization, by far just better overall for the company and better for that surveyor. He's now got on his resume digital tools, and he's digital now. He's not just an old school surveyor that can
Swinging a hammer and just into what I said, writing reports.
Yeah. To wrap it up, if you could send a message to every offshore operator about digital transformation, what would that be?
I would say whether we as an industry or you as a person like it, accept it, the goalposts are moving. So we can't do what we've always done.
Yeah.
We have to be innovating. We have to be doing things that we have never done before. And as we move those goalposts, companies, even regulators, understand that things are moving this way. This is now the new standard. And eventually what is today's standard at some point is going to make it into regulation. It's going to be the minimum expectation.
Yeah.
And it's probably in everybody's best interest to understand that and look at the gaps in your operation. You know, where am I still doing things the way I did it 10 years ago, 50 years ago? And I think it would be beneficial to identify those, upgrade your processes, upgrade the tools that you're using, just at this point, even just to keep abreast of where the goalpost is now.
Yeah.
Because sooner or later, you're going to have to do it. And putting it off until then is going to cost untold millions.
Yeah.
You know, you can do it incrementally and you can have a better operation. You can have better return on investment now. Now, to me, it just makes sense.
I think that the times that we're in now, being content is no longer it's not going to work anymore. You've got to get with the times. It's the money and the time savings just out the gate by going digital is, I mean, it's hard to argue with, and it's something that these operators, I think, like I said earlier, they all got digital journeys. They see it. They're trying to get there. It's just still uncharted waters on how to get there. They're still trying to figure that out.
I think the more that they can work together by sharing the data, sharing the lessons learned, making sure that everything is out there and not hiding it from everybody. Just because a kick was reported here, well, we're not going to share all the details of what happened, so nobody learns anything from it. The more data and information that they can share with each other, the more they can help increase efficiency and save each other money, and the more everybody benefits. And working with the rig contractor, you know, everybody as a whole, and utilizing the data that everybody has, I think the more everybody would benefit.
It's going to, just like we said, Eric was mentioning, the goalpost is going to constantly move with time and technology, and some are more receptive to change. Clients are doing things to try to get into the game. Where that's going to end, you know, just depends on the technology and all. But it's the problem you see is, that costs too much money. Yeah, well, it may cost you X today, but it's going to cost you X squared tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I mean, not only that aspect of it, but two, if you prevent one stack pull, you pay for those services 10 absolutes one time, right? And that's, money's always going to be the biggest factor, right? People are going to see a number and be like, mate, that's a lot of money. But they're not looking at, that's a lot of money right here.
Yeah,
But I say, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not a lot of money. It's a fraction of what I'm going to end up paying if I get stack pull. Right. And that's getting that mindset change, which, again, most operators are already there. Yeah. They're like, yeah, but they see the value, they see the benefit of it. So it's not hard to get them to transition over or to get them going down that digital path. But yeah, there's still some of that way of thinking. It's getting lesser and lesser, but
Kind of wrapping up what everybody just said, my experience has always been, and it still holds true today, the hardest thing to sell in oil and gas is savings. And as technologies come out and they get more and more mature, you've got this base of information where you can say, look, I can prove to you that doing it this way will save you this much money. And eventually people will come around to that. But as something new and different comes out, it's hard to get that first bite.
Yeah.
Once you get it, it's easy to snowball and it's easy to show. But yeah, selling savings is exceedingly difficult.
And I think part of it also is the operators have squeezed the rig contractors down so much on their day rates that the operators want something, but the rig contractor goes, well, are you going to pay us for it? No. So we're not going to spend the money. We've already budgeted X amount, so it's not in there. And until the operators mandated in the new contracts, then it's not going to happen on some of these new technologies. There's been a reluctance to spend money by the contractors.
Yeah, that's a battle on the side of my battle. Love you.
Get to the lawyers and the check writers, it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah. Thank you guys for joining. Some good insights. I appreciate your time. For any of you operators, contractors out there that are looking to go down that digital journey quicker, give us a shout.